Welcome to Jurassic World.
Hello, and welcome to Collect Jurassic World. I'm Victoria.
And this is Tim.
And we are your hosts on this adventure through all things Jurassic World. Hey Tim, hey parkgoers. Welcome back to Collect Jurassic World. It's great to have you back as we turn to the latest in Jurassic news and collecting.
We have another awesome episode for you. We'll be going over a new miniature game coming to us in the Jurassic universe. Definitely be talking about the new Destroy and Devour Indominus Rex that's hitting. Awesome new toy. We have lots to discuss with that one. Also be talking about Jurassic World Evolution, some other fun side projects for Jurassic World, and of course we'll be doing another Jurassic Clash segment where we will be pitting different figures against each other once again.
Awesome. So, lots of stuff to talk about. So let's go ahead and get right to it. So, Tim, how are things going over in the control center?
Let's start off with some park announcements here at the park today. First thing I want to talk about again is this miniature game. It's Jurassic World miniature game. Not too much is known about this. I don't even think you said you'd heard about it, but
no.
It's been on social media. It's some sort of game that'll be coming to Kickstarter, and I think by all accounts it's officially licensed by Universal, but it's going to be seeking that crowdfunding that a lot of stuff needs when it goes to Kickstarter. But what they have released so far is really cool. They've released a couple screenshots of the models that'll be in this miniature game. So there's Triceratops, Velociraptor, T-Rex. I think they had some mercenaries in there, but very detailed, obviously using movie assets. You can tell that these aren't something that they recreated trying to model after Jurassic. They actually look like movie assets that Universal provided to them to kind of create this game. But really, I don't think a lot is known about what it is. It also seems to be developed overseas, so a lot of the information out there is, I think, in French. But I've heard that come June 1st, when it does go on to Kickstarter, we'll find out more about it. But it does look really cool. I mean, we've had a lot of great Jurassic board games, so I'm excited to get another one.
Oh, very interesting. So, it's also interesting how you mentioned that this is sanctioned by Universal. It's an official product, but it's also a Kickstarter, huh?
Yeah, that is interesting. I don't know why they chose to go that route, but maybe it's just one of those, a question of if there's enough interest to actually make this game. It looks like it could be a fairly involved strategy game, which really gets me excited. I love all the Jurassic board games we have, but something a little more deep, a little more involved, maybe a little more Dungeons and Dragons-y would actually be pretty cool in my book.
Interesting. So it's not too dissimilar from what Hasbro did earlier last year with the Star Wars sail barge, where they tried to get, it wasn't on Kickstarter, but it was a crowdfunded product. And it's interesting to see the bigger companies taking this route, because traditionally anyway, Kickstarter has been meant for smaller, people trying to get their products out there. So it's just funny to see these big corporations kind of taking advantage of it too.
Yeah, it is interesting. And I get the feeling that this is sort of a passion project for this actual company making the game. Maybe Universal just asked them to look for Kickstarter for that extra push. But yeah, I'm real excited to find out more about it. And I think in the next few weeks, we'll definitely have more info up on collectjurassic.com as it comes available. But definitely something that I have an eye on right now.
Interesting stuff. Also want to mention that the Rebor Dilophosaurus, for those of you who collect dinosaurs outside of the Jurassic world, can check that out. So we will throw some links down in the description. There's two versions of the Rebor Dilophosaurus. Tim, are you familiar with this product?
Yeah, I actually took a pretty good look at it the other day. I don't even really collect Rebor, but I always have my eye on them because, they are basically Jurassic designs, right?
A lot of them are, yeah. Anytime they do a dinosaur species seen in the Jurassic franchise, it's typically a pretty strong recreation of dinosaurs from the series. And
this Dilophosaur looks like that, right? I mean, it looks like a Jurassic Dilophosaur.
It definitely does. The colors don't really look like Jurassic Park Dilophosaurus, but the sculpts certainly share that very similar aesthetic that we have with the Jurassic Park version of the creatures. So, I don't know that I'm going to be getting this one. I have been buying Rebor for several years now, but I kind of pick and choose. And I just recently got their new Tyrannosaurus Rex. And that one is in my pile of loot over at Big Bad Toy Store, so it hasn't shipped yet. But I don't know. I'm going to think about it. I'll probably pass on it though.
Huh. I mean, it is really cool. They are frillless, so I mean, they kind of lose a little bit of their Jurassic callback, but the pattern on them definitely feels Jurassic. And I think one thing I appreciate about Rebor is the naming conventions they use for their dinosaurs, at least when they're Jurassic related. Like, I know there was a raptor named Winston, which was obviously, a callback to Stan Winston. I can't think of the top of my head what these Dilophosaurs names are, but when I saw them, it didn't strike me as something that was related to the films, but it's just a nice little wink they do with a lot of their figures where you're like, there's definitely a little homage there to the Jurassic films. But these Dilophosaurs do look very cool. Again, not Jurassic license per se, but I think anyone with an appreciation for Jurassic dinosaur design would love a lot about what Rebor makes.
Right, absolutely. And the names are Green Day and Oasis.
Yeah, I can't see the Jurassic connection there, but I still appreciate that they named their dinosaurs such fun names.
Yeah, they definitely have a tradition of doing that for quite some time now, so fun stuff.
Yeah. So moving on, park announcements. So again, we're really trying to cover things here that are upcoming that aren't quite out yet. We'll definitely get to later in the show dinosaur toys, Jurassic toys that are released in stores. But this section is really meant for talking about things that aren't out yet, and it could be way off, which is probably the case with this next figure, which is the Jurassic World Battle Damage Gallimimus. So we haven't seen any battle damage for 2019 hit US yet. I'm talking about the Plesiosaurus. There's a yellow Pteranodon. There's repacks of Velociraptor Blue and Stygimoloch. All these battle damage figures that are released in other countries in their new packaging haven't hit yet here. So this Gallimimus is obviously a later figure in this wave, or a later wave in this assortment, and we have pictures of it, so we know it's coming, or at least it's planned to come, but still a long ways off. But I think what's interesting to me is that it's probably not the only future battle damage figure coming. It's certainly one of the only repacks, but I'm guessing there's some unknowns out there that have yet to pop up.
Yeah, it is interesting how none of these have hit in the US yet. I know that a lot of us have been really excited for them, and it's strange because here we are in May and still nothing. So here's hoping that before too long we'll start to see some of these newer battle damage figures make their way out to Walmart.
For sure. I think before we knew about the Indominus Rex, we knew about the battle damage Plesiosaurus, and I think a lot of people were very excited about that figure. So I just can't believe it won't come here eventually. I keep saying that, and I mean it, and I really hope that they come, and I hope that whatever wave this Gallimimus is part of doesn't take 2 years to get here. I hope everything is able to kind of roll out this year here in the US for all you collectors out there that are completionists like us and want to collect every single figure that comes out.
Absolutely. All right, so let's get into asset tracking to see what is going on. So currently, the Indominus Rex, the highly anticipated release from Mattel in their Jurassic World toy line. Fans have been asking for this for years. It's finally starting to make its way out there via Entertainment Earth and Amazon.com. Mine just came in earlier this week from Entertainment Earth. It looks like these places are sold out of it, doesn't it? It's like so far, it looks like if you go to Amazon and Entertainment Earth, they don't have any left. Everything is, it looks like gone to back order.
Yeah, I think they've shipped out a bunch of orders. Like you said, you received yours from Entertainment Earth. I personally got one from Amazon today. I know I was pretty quick on the draw when those went up for pre-order, and they've been shipping them out since last week, and they shipped more out obviously this week with us getting some from our different retailers. So I think what we're seeing is they've sold through their first shipment, and now they are kind of selling back order to the next shipment, which I think on Entertainment Earth it says June. So it's not like it's that long of a wait. I mean, June's basically a couple weeks away at this point.
So it is really cool that it's finally making its way out there. It is interesting how this has not gone up for pre-order through Walmart or Target. So right now it looks like it's just going to be a online offering. I imagine that it's going to hit the retailers as well. It's probably going to be part of the next reset if I had to venture a guess. But for the time being, it looks like if you want an Indominus, you got to go through Amazon or Entertainment Earth.
Yeah, and a lot of people are asking, when is this going to hit stores? And I think the official release for this is fall, which is kind of confusing because people think, oh, like October, September. But really, as far as the retail season is concerned, fall is actually kind of mid to late summer. So yeah. I would guess that this figure, we're getting it now from online retailers in May. I'm guessing at some point in July, we'll start to see these hit the shelves in Walmart and Target and maybe a few other places like Kohl's or Meijer, some of these regional stores that still happen to carry Jurassic.
Yeah. Who knows? And like you say, I think fall is basically at retail. It's like after 4th of July, basically. So I assume that the stores will be doing the resets somewhere in that time frame once the back to school stuff starts hitting.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I know sometimes we are able to get a copy of those, I think they're called planograms of what the store shelves will look like. And I'll be anxious to see if there's a big giant hole ready for a bunch of Indominus Rexes. Because that's another thing. I think stores are going to carry these like gangbusters. Like I bet stores will carry 5 of them. It's going to be like the thrash and throw where they'll just load up the stores with them. I think it'll be an easy toy to get, so nobody should panic.
Right. I used to set planograms at Best Buy.
So you know all about it, yeah. We'll have to wait and see, what's going on with that one as far as a retail release. But I think it'll still be shipping online through when it'll show up in stores too. So, moving on, let's talk about these Amazon exclusive listings that have popped up on Amazon for Jurassic World toys. Don't get too excited. It's not brand new Amazon exclusive Jurassic World toys. What they've done, it looks like, is taken a lot of figures that were available last year that you can't find in any stores now for the most part. Maybe you get lucky and find them on a clearance rack or behind something, but a lot of these toys they have on Amazon listed as Amazon exclusives are just toys you can't get anymore that they're readily selling for their base retail price. Toys like Mosasaurus, I think Carnotaur, the Action Attack Carnotaurus. There's a few other ones on there. I think there's some games and like maybe the Blue Mask, so some role-playing Jurassic World items, but popular toys for sure that they are selling on Amazon, and they have literally in the product listing Amazon exclusive. So a little interesting verbiage, wouldn't you think?
Yeah, absolutely. And there's also things like the Suchomimus, the Mosasaurus, and the one that sticks out to me that as being pretty unusual is the Super Colossal T-Rex, because I still see those at Target, so I'm not sure why they're calling it their exclusive at this point.
Yeah, that is a weird one. I haven't seen one around here for a little bit, but maybe it's kind of a sign of things to come that figure isn't going to be sold in brick and mortar stores anymore, and you're only going to be able to find that on Amazon. So it's interesting.
And then with Super Colossal Blue coming, that would make sense.
Oh, yeah. It would make sense that it's only going to be on Amazon, or that they're making room for it in the brick and mortar stores.
Exactly. They're probably going to be phasing out the T-Rex, if I had to venture a guess, and replacing it with Blue this fall.
Yeah, you're probably right. I mean, it would be a lot for stores to have both of those items on the shelf, so kind of makes sense. But I think it's always a bummer to see these figures that we've all fell in love with the past year, that we're used to seeing on shelves, kind of disappear from the shelves, not for good, but kind of become something you can only buy online.
Right. And I mean, it's a good thing, though, that at least, if Target and Walmart aren't going to be carrying these toys anymore, which I haven't seen Action Attacks at Walmart in, gosh, I don't know how long. And I know that Target clearanced them out in the last couple of months. If they're not going to be carrying them, though, it's nice that Amazon is, because things like the Carnotaurus, just a couple of weeks ago, those were going for like $60 on the secondary market. And the fact that Amazon has them back in stock at $19.99 has really driven down the price on the aftermarket. So it's good that if people, maybe they're new to get into the line, or they're just missing something that they didn't get around to getting, they'll still have a chance to get some of this stuff. So I think in that sense, it is nice that they are offering these through Amazon.
Yeah, and I think they're hitting all the greatest hits too. The Suchomimus and the Carnotaurus are both really popular action attack figures, and they're still making them available. I mean, that's great. And I think what we're seeing is Mattel kind of responding to what items are popular and making sure that, they aren't prematurely completely retired or hard to find. We saw that with the Baryonyx and Allosaurus Roarivores. They disappeared. Places like eBay started selling them for ridiculous prices, and then all of a sudden they're being freshly stocked at Walmart and a few other places. I know I've seen a few actually in the past few months on random store shelves. So it's kind of cool that they're listening and they're aware of what people really want, and they're making it available so that, if you're late to the game or you just happen to miss the figure, you don't have to pay an arm and a leg for it.
Yep, totally. All right, so another thing we want to talk about is the sudden surge in dual attacks and savage strikes that are hitting Walmart stores. So we touched on these in the last episode, how we had just started finding things like the dual attack Allosaurus and Nasutoceratops and the Concavinator, and dinosaurs like the Savage Strike, Dilophosaurus, Velociraptor Blue, and Pachycephalosaurus. So it's a very interesting situation. We haven't quite seen anything like this so far in this toy line in its 1 year plus history. So I have some concerns about it, some theories that I'm trying to speculate on. But it is a very interesting development because these have not been announced. They have not been, other than the Savage Strikes, the dual attacks had not been announced. And there was no indication at all that they were coming. And even as of yet, the fact that they are hitting and there's still no official word on them makes them pretty unique.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think what also is sort of remarkable is that they kind of hit the US almost at the same time. Like, usually what we've seen, like you said, in the 1+ year history of Mattel Jurassic is something might hit in Texas and then take a couple weeks, if not a month, to get to other places, or would hit in California and do the same thing. But with these dual attacks and these Savage Strikes, and to an extent the Roarivores, the Roarivore repaints, I mean, they've really hit everywhere all at once, which I think in the world of, shipping logistics and stocking and, all that stuff, I think it's pretty remarkable that they managed to kind of have a national rollout here in the States of these figures hitting everywhere for everyone.
Yeah, totally. I mean, the way it usually works is if you're closer to Los Angeles, that's where the ports are, that's where the boats come in from China, things will start to trickle out from there and make their way eastward. But with these Savage Strikes and these dual attacks, they just kind of hit. Like within a week, they were available from California to the East Coast. And it's a really interesting thing because it's a great rollout. I mean, like, distribution wise, it's pretty darn awesome for anybody that's collecting this line. You don't have to wait too long to get what you want. But at the same time, it's just so out of left field. And what I'm kind of wondering with these, Tim, is are they going to continue shipping them, and are they going to possibly clog up distribution? I'm talking about the dual attacks and the new Savage Strikes. Or is this maybe going to be like a one and done thing? Like they're shipping this one time, then after that, that's kind of going to be it until the next wave.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think, I've seen so many Savage Strikes already hit in the area around me. I think we both have discussed in the show how we live in sort of metropolitan areas. We have a lot of stores around us, so we're able to kind of get a feel of, what the stores all around us are doing. And I can tell you that every store around me, every Walmart store that is just loaded with Savage Strikes. Some got 2 or 3 cases. Some got, at least 2 cases. And I think that that's kind of unusual because normally when we see, a wave come in, you get like one figure on the shelf and then it's gone. But they're really kind of making a push to get as many of these figures of the new wave as possible on the shelf. So it is interesting, and I don't know if it's a one and done thing, but it kind of obliterates the first wave for sure. There's no real kind of gradation into the next wave. It's just boom, we're on wave 2 now, and or wave 3, I guess, and everything else that came before it. You better buy it while you can, because we might be looking at this next wave for a while.
Right. I haven't seen a Parasaurolophus in a few weeks. I haven't seen that Pteranodon in a few weeks. And one of my Walmarts had maybe like 10 of that Pteranodon. And now they're all gone. Now it looks like the new Concavinator repaint's going to be the peg warmer this time around.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I'd say that for me, I haven't seen a lot of... I haven't been to a store where I was like, wow, they have a lot of the new dual attacks. But I will say that every store I got to that had them, there's usually a Concavinator or two left. So I would say that's an accurate prediction that might be a little bit of a shelf warmer going forward. So yeah, it sounds like maybe the previous wave of dual attack, the Parasaurolophus, like you mentioned, Concavinator, Triceratops, their days might be numbered. But I would say that there's, at least around me, plenty of dual attack Triceratops to go around. Those things are everywhere around here, which I like the figure, but maybe it's not, paint job isn't dynamic enough to entice collectors or kids or something. So it seems to be also a pretty big shelf warmer.
And it was carried forward in the wave with the Pteranodon. So
I didn't know that. Interesting. Yeah, well, there you go.
Yeah, so there's that. And also, I think part of it is that the Rorovor's Triceratops was available for a really long time. It was carried forward into multiple assortments last year into this year. So there's still quite a few of them out there. And I think that's part of the reason that, we're starting to see these dual attacks pile up for Triceratops, because it's one of those things, if you're a parent buying for a kid or something, you might think, oh, well, Billy already has a Triceratops, I'm not going to buy him another Triceratops. Yeah. So, I think that's part of it. And you also bring up a really good point. Buy while the getting is good. And I say that too about these new dual attacks, because what if these are going to be a one and done sort of thing where, they're flooding the market with them right now. The stores or Walmart's going to be carrying them for a bit. But what if there's not like a backup push for them? You never know. There probably is. But, my collector brain just kind of goes through all these thoughts and ideas and possibilities. And also all these sorts of things have happened before. So I always say, buy while the getting's good. If you see that new Allosaurus or new Pseudoceratops, buy them on site, because you just never know.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I can think of a bunch of different ways this has played out before. I know... we kind of think of these toys coming out in multiple waves, and sometimes those middle waves don't stick around very long. For whatever reason, the first wave sticks around forever and the last wave sticks around forever, but these middle waves kind of come and go. And not that will definitely be the case here, but it definitely kind of should motivate people to pick these up while they can, because we do know there's another wave of Savage Strike coming. We know that there's at least a Savage Strike Plesiosaur coming, and I'm sure it'll probably include a few repacks. If I had to bet, I'd say Stygimoloch and Velociraptor Blue would come repacked in that wave, but maybe a few others will come about, but certainly not all of them from the current wave will carry forward into the next wave. So yes, definitely buy while the getting's good.
Right, and it's also notable how these are only available so far through Walmart. You can't get them on Walmart.com. You got to get them at the store. But so far, there's no solicitation for them through Target or Entertainment Earth or Amazon. So it's a really curious situation. Like I said, it's the most unique thing I think that's happened in this line as far as, surprise products that show up out of the blue. Yeah. And aren't available anywhere else. So maybe they're a Walmart exclusive. I really don't know. We don't have any information. So it is an interesting development that I'll definitely keep an eye on with great interest.
Yeah, the dual attacks, right. They're not available anywhere but Walmart brick and mortar stores. The Savage Strikes aren't available online for Walmart or Target either, but you can at least get the new Savage Strikes through Entertainment Earth, and I think Amazon has them up for pre-order and they'll ship eventually.
Yes.
But the dual attack are just a total mystery. But I think there's an element of that, them not being available for order anywhere online yet, is because I think there must be some sort of street date or something with information that has to do with Battle at Big Rock, which is what we talked about last episode, that's printed on the package as seen in Battle at Big Rock. There's obviously some sort of promotional vehicle there that these toys are tied to, and maybe that's what's keeping them from kind of going online as products we can easily order. It's just something that showed up in Walmart, and that's all it's going to be right now.
Right. And maybe the fact that they're hitting these huge numbers at Walmart is the reason why Target or Amazon isn't getting any of them, because they're all at Walmart. There's tons and tons and tons of them all across the U.S. hitting Walmart stores.
Right. Yeah. So, yep, I think it's a sage advice if you're a collector out there to definitely track these down and get them while you can.
All right, so as we make our way over to the trophy room, let's go and take a look and see if there is anything new that we have added to our collections. Tim, what's going on over there?
Well, we know of one big thing that we've both added to our collections this week, and I'm sure a lot of listeners out there have probably found in their own collection, which is the Destroy and Devour Indominus Rex. Talked about it a little in the beginning of the episode, that these were shipping out from Amazon and Entertainment Earth for people that pre-ordered them, and a lot of us have it in our hands now, and oh man, this figure totally delivers, right?
It totally delivers. I just shot my review for it earlier today. It's close to an hour of footage that I need to condense to like 15 or 20 minutes, but yeah, I'm in love with the Indominus Rex. I ain't gonna lie, she is badass. This Indominus had a lot to live up to. When you think back to the things that Hasbro did with their Indominus, or is it Indomini? Is that how the plural form is?
I don't know. That's a good question.
So you think back to what they did, and then what Mattel has been doing for the past year. For the most part, they're hitting home runs. Not with everything, but with most things. This right here is the home run of home runs. This is like a slam dunk, and I'm not a sports person, so you'll have to forgive my comparisons here, but this is like a hole in one. Like, I think that I haven't been as pleased with anything in this line, maybe since the Super Colossal T-Rex. Like, for me, this is just like a 10 out of 10. Whenever I look at toys, there's two things that I focus on. The first thing is, how much does it look like what I saw in the film? I think that's a hugely important thing, because if it doesn't look like what I saw in the film, it what's the point in having it? The second thing I look at is it fun? Now, we know that these are mass-produced toys. We know that Mattel is making toys. They're not high-end collectibles from Chronicle. They're not the kind of things you buy to keep, for 50 years as a museum piece. I mean, hopefully you can, but usually you can't. So they're making toys, and is it fun? Is this Indominus fun? Having had it out of the package for a couple of days and being able to play with it and take it outside for photos and just have a blast with it, it is immensely fun. It's an absolute blast to have this. Have you been able to play with yours yet?
I have it in the box, but they made it very playable within the box, and you can really appreciate what you were saying, which is the amazing accuracy of the figure. We have a review up on collectjurassic.com. We had a paleo collector who's on Instagram actually write the review, as he was able to get the toy before me. And Mr. Classic Jurassic was kind enough to shoot some photos for the review as well. And one of the things that the written review remarked on, which I totally agree with, is they obviously had access to like Industrial Light and Magic assets for this figure, because it looks just like the movie. The face especially, but not just the mold, but the paint application too, like kind of the darker highlights around the eyes and the skull. It just looks perfect. The spines on the neck, again, it's all kind of toyified the slightest bit, but in a perfectly kind of acceptable way, in that it doesn't ruin it and kind of makes it a little bit more even better, because it's like, again, it's not this high-end statue, but it's like the perfect toy version of Indominus. They just totally killed it. And the play features are great too. I will say, at the expense of the posability, the play features are great. It kind of reminds me a little bit of the Thrash and Throw Rex, where it looks amazing, but I can't pose it with a cocked head or a tilted neck, it does have some flexibility in one of the legs and the arms, and that's great. But I would say at the expense of the posability, the play features are incredible. It would just be nice if you could pose it a little bit more, but that's pretty nitpicky for a toy that's otherwise just a perfect version of a toy Indominus Rex. So I'm not going to come down too hard on it for that.
Yeah, I completely got to agree with that. And you got to think about what Mattel set out to do here. They set out to deliver a fun toy that looks incredible. And on that front, they absolutely delivered. The aesthetics on this thing are incredibly film accurate to what we see in Jurassic World. It's almost scary. You look at this thing, it looks like it stepped right out of Jurassic World. And I'm not trying to accentuate how awesome it is. I mean, it truly is awesome. Once you get it in hand and you can fully appreciate what this thing looks like. I do have my nitpicks. I mean, you know me, I'm very analytical. I look at things carefully and, I'm very detail oriented. So I like to, kind of go over the whole thing and say, what could be a little bit better? So not going to lie, there's a couple minor things that in no way overshadow the positives of this thing, because by and large, this thing is as close to perfect as you could reasonably expect from a Mattel toy. I would say the color on the neck, it could use a little bit more color there to kind of match the back. They also didn't paint the claws at the front. That is one thing I did notice. The teeth seem to be a little bit short compared to the film. Again, not a deal breaker, but notable. And perhaps the one thing that kind of bothers me the most is the placement of the speaker holes. If you look at the back of the Indominus Rex, they are placed in a very curious spot.
I feel like they did that for the old Kenner Red Rex too. It's like they literally put it like right where, right where there'd be some anatomical feature. And I always thought that was funny as a kid that they would put that there. But maybe it's this nice little homage here with the Indominus Rex to put the speaker holes there for this figure too. One thing you didn't mention that a lot of people nitpick about this figure, but staring at it in front of me, doesn't bother me at all, is the length of the tail. It's got kind of a shorter tail than what you would think. I think if I sit here and really stare at it, I'm like, oh yeah, the tail could be longer, but it doesn't really affect the toy, especially, when you're taking photos or you're posing it on your shelf. You're never really looking at it and kind of measuring it snout to tip of tail and thinking like, oh, that's not quite right. It's something that I think maybe in photos, it's easy to kind of, glob onto and find issue with, but in hand, it's not even an issue.
No, not really. In fact, I hadn't even really thought about that. I know that short tails have been a thing with the Mattel line on a lot of the carnivores. But this one it's not too bad. It is a little short, but it's not, it doesn't detract from the aesthetic. It's not like the Allosaurus or, something like that.
Yeah, where it's obviously too short. Right.
Yeah, other than that, there's not really anything I could gripe about. Maybe the quills on the back of the neck are a little bit short. And the dew claws on the feet, they didn't paint those either. But again, these are nitpicks. These are things that, they could have gone a little bit further and done these things. But realistically, this is as detailed as you can expect, sculpt-wise, paint-wise. Yeah. And, Indominus is a very simply painted creature in the film. But they translated it perfectly here. Just the execution of the overall aesthetics here, totally a winner.
Yeah, and I think the quills or the spikes, whatever you call them on the back of its neck, again, is sort of a toyification thing where at least they included them in a way that they stick out. I think the Hasbro one, they really kind of diminished them on that. So they were basically just nubs. So I like that they went out of their way to make them a little bit more spindly, a little bit longer, but obviously they're not like the film one where they're sharp and spiky and tiny. I think they did a good job of making something that's going to hold up for all of us and hold up for kids too, but still make it it's a defining feature of the figure of the dinosaur design. So I think they did a good job bringing it over into toy form, and I think you could say that pretty much about everything with this figure.
Yeah, they absolutely did. I would completely agree with that. And I gotta say, the action features on this thing are awesome. Sometimes the action features detract from the overall aesthetic, or they take away from how awesome it could potentially have looked. And I'm thinking of things like the Thrash and Throw T-Rex, or
even
with like
to
the
weird hinges.
Yeah, or even to a lesser extent, the Bite and Fight T-Rex. With this, they integrated those features so naturally. You can barely see the buttons that you use to activate the features. And the features themselves are really fun. First of all, you can press the button at the front and it kind of pushes its arms together. It kind of looks like it's clapping, but I think
it works a lot better than the Grab and Growl Endoraptor. It's the same idea. It just works a lot better here.
Oh yeah, it works so much better. It's a much tighter feature, and those claws can grab onto things a lot better. But the feature that I especially like, of course, is you press the button on the back, and that's when it opens its mouth, and you have some fun stuff going on inside the mouth, huh?
Yeah, that red light that illuminates its prey. It's such a strange thing that wasn't in the movie, but it's so cool. Like, even if it wasn't something in the movie, it feels like, I don't know, the Indominus was such a strange, weird hybrid of all these different mystery kind of creatures, dinosaurs, and animals. And I can totally see it having some sort of pulsating red glowing neck in the movie too, that, you know, maybe did the same thing. It's just it is kind of funny though in a children's toy, you know, and not that this is obviously something aimed for collectors too, because it is so faithful to the movie design, but kids are going to be picking this up, and it's just kind of a little bit morbid of a feature. But hey, I love that stuff. That's what like us 90s kids were raised on, so yeah. I'm glad to see it here.
Totally. And the light doesn't always come on. If you press that back button, it doesn't always come on. But the instructions do say if you want it to come on, you just press the button 3 times and it'll open its mouth and lights will come on. Another thing I didn't expect about it is that when you pull the tail upwards to push the front of the body downwards, the front of the neck looks down, like it's looking down at its prey. So I thought that was a really cool feature.
Yeah, it is. It's very cool how they made all these organic movements sort of tied together, and they're all so solid. You know, we've talked at length on the podcast before about the Thrash and Throw Rex here and there. You know, that Rex, for me, the gimmicks always felt a little bit fragile, and this Indominus, it just feels like I'm not going to break it. It feels like I'm hitting the mark every time. I'm not, you know, activating the lunge and something isn't quite working when I do it. It just demos very well, and I think the mechanism they have that is underlying everything is obviously a lot more dependable and a lot more sturdy. So overall, I have less qualms about the way that the actions work in this figure.
Absolutely. Now, Tim, I do have a couple of concerns about it for the future. This is something, you know, as a collector, we always think about, you know, looking ahead. How is this going to hold up? How is that going to hold up? I'm a little bit worried about the lights inside the throat. What do you think about those?
Yeah, it's funny you should mention that. At Toy Fair, they had this figure on display, obviously. And I remember, you know, the first day, one of the LED lights was not working, and it's like, that's interesting. This is like, you know, Toy Fair. This is their probably one sample they have of it to show off to the press, and one of the lights already isn't working. So it's definitely a reasonable concern to have, because I mean, they're LEDs, so they should last a long time, but they'll go out eventually, and it's not something that's going to be easy to fix. So those will probably go at some point, but again, it probably isn't going to be for, you know, at least a few years. But when it happens, there's not going to be any way to replace that.
That's a bummer. That's one concern I had. The other one, and before I get to it, did you notice that there's a little plastic piece in the back of the throat, and if you push on that, it makes like it's kind of like chewing or swallowing sounds? Oh
no! See, I've yet to play with it that much. Wow, that's cool. I did not know that.
Yeah, it's like a little plastic shield that you see at the back of the throat, and when you put a figure in there like Owen, who's the most fun character to eat, which, you know, you just got to do this action feature where you eat Owen and lift it up and have him go straight down the throat, because that's a blast. But yeah, when the figure pushes on that little shield at the back, it makes like a kind of like kind of like a chewing or like a motion inside the mouth type swallowing.
I love it.
Sound.
That's so cool.
It is. I'll see if I can have it right here. See if I can activate it for our listeners, for our park goers.
Yeah.
Let's see.
For sure. Oh man, it sounds juicy. It sounds like there's some real some real blood and guts being crunched on when it goes.
Oh yeah, totally.
That's awesome. I didn't even know that. Again, another great callback to a Kenner Bull T-Rex with its crunching noise.
Yeah, it's I'm in love with this thing. Like, it might be partly the shiny new toy syndrome talking, but I'm inclined to say this is my favorite toy in the entire Mattel Jurassic World toy line.
It's awesome, and I think they were like wise to hold off on making it until now, because it's kind of like an event toy. I think it would have been. It's an amazing job they did on it, but I think it might have been lost in the shuffle last year, and I think kind of waiting for a year out, Fallen Kingdom has come and gone, to kind of revisit Jurassic World with this figure is a really, really cool kind of timing thing they did. And speaking of revisiting Jurassic World, if you look on the back of the figure, the back of the packaging, there's an Owen figure on there that this isn't a version of Owen that we actually have. Not that any of us out there are begging for more Owen figures from Mattel, but it is cool because the figure on the back of the box, the artwork, it has the vest from the first movie. So I think we've seen that figure design in maybe like a 12-inch figure, but we haven't seen it in the 3 3/4. So it'd be cool if we would get some more classic Jurassic World figure designs and humans. I don't know how much more human figures we're going to get in the near future, but if there's an Owen, there should be a white uniform Claire Deering on the way, if you ask me. Not that there is, but I just say you can't have one without the other. So that's what gets me pretty excited about looking at the back of the box and seeing Mattel kind of return to Jurassic World, the first movie, with this Indominus figure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree. We don't need more Owens. We got plenty of them. We got Owen, in blue. Then we have Owen in blue, and then we have Owen in blue. So there are plenty of Owen figures to go around.
I actually also have an Owen in blue.
I was wondering about that. I was going to ask you if you had an Owen in blue.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would like to see them release that Jurassic World version. And like you said, they got to do Claire. I mean, they can't just do one and not the other. So, and you know what? Give us both versions of Claire. Give us pre-Jungle Claire, where she's all polished, and then post-Jungle Claire, where she's all dirtied up and her shirt's ripped and her hair's frizzy. I want both of those in my collection.
Yeah, I think it's like one of the most iconic costumes to come out of the first Jurassic World movie. So I actually can't believe we don't have a figure of it yet. So who knows? Maybe that's on the way. Again, there's obviously a conscious effort with the Raptor Squad coming out this year and with Indominus Rex to kind of realize some of these Jurassic World specific figures.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'd love to see the focus shift, because I love Jurassic World. I mean, I enjoy Fallen Kingdom a lot, but like Jurassic World really reawakened, all this hype and interest in the franchise. And even me personally, it really like got me back into, obviously collecting Jurassic toys and getting back into it after, having not bought any there weren't any in stores really for a while, a few things at Toys R Us here and there, but I'd really like to see the focus shift to Jurassic World and some figures, some new dinos that are more specific to that film. Give me a playset. I mean, I'm in for it all. If they want to give it to me, throw it on over. I'll trade them for some money. How about that?
Yeah. I think we could probably devote an entire episode to what you and I both like about Jurassic World, the first film, and kind of what it means to us as far as being Jurassic fans. But we'll save that for another hour. But yeah, I guess I'll move on from Indominus. We have one more item we want to cover in the trophy room, and that is the battle damaged Plesiosaurus. I actually was able to finally track one down. I made a friend, Taylor, in Guatemala, who I guess the shelves there are just lousy with these things, which is interesting because, again, in the U.S., we are still pretty much flush with old battle damage figures at our Walmart stores, but down in Guatemala, they have a lot of these plesiosaurs, and he was able to send me one for my channel one for Collect Jurassic that I could review here, and we'll be sharing a review on YouTube, and I obviously am going to talk about it here. But awesome figure, great articulation. It's small, but plesiosaur actually was a pretty small marine reptile, so it's sort of like the Styracosaur, where everyone's like, wow, that's kind of a small Styracosaur, but really that's how small they were. And this plesiosaur is sort of the same way, but they really packed in their articulation for a small figure like this. So the fins, if you have the Mattel Mosasaur figure, you'll know that the fins on that kind of have a hinge and they rotate, and it's the same thing on this one. So same exact posability with the fins, which I think is really good for a swimming creature. And then the neck obviously has two kinds of articulation. It has the base where the neck meets the body that goes up and down, but then there's like an upper part of articulation that includes the head and a little bit of the neck. That you can kind of rotate around 360 degrees as well as pivot up and down, so you can really get those classic Loch Ness poses as well as some kind of cool swimming, lunging motions. And then, of course, you have the jaw articulation and battle damage as well. But I just think I know we have another plesiosaur coming, a Savage Strike, that has a little bit more muddy of a color, but this one I think is going to remain my favorite. It's something about this kind of white cream skin reminds me of a beluga whale. It reminds me of something that would be in like, the wild oceans, and I think that's what I like most about it. And I would just assume that every Jurassic collector of a certain age has been wishing for a plesiosaur figure. Would you agree with that?
Oh yeah, I mean, plesiosaur, even though it's not a dinosaur, it's a marine reptile, isn't it?
Right, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, aquatic dinosaur or aquatic marine reptiles, those are the kind of things that we only dream of adding into this toy line, and there aren't very many out there. The Mosasaurus was a huge addition to the franchise and to the toy line, and I'm really glad that they're building that out with Plesiosaurus, and I hope that we continue to see more of them.
Yeah, me too. And I think that this figure is a great kind of next entry into that. I will say, this is just my opinion, but I hope they kind of draw the line with this kind of, like you said, aquatic marine reptile. I don't know if we need to go down like, woolly mammoth, saber-toothed tiger, that kind of thing. But again, that's probably a whole nother discussion for another episode. But I am glad to see them taking a small step outside of the core dinosaur kingdom and kind of getting into something a little different. And again, this figure is great, and I do think it's going to show up here on shelves eventually, so everyone's going to be able to get their hands on it. But I'm a total completionist I'm an impatient completionist. So not only do I need to have it, have everything, but if there's a chance to get it, I'm just going to jump on it. And in this case, it was getting it from Guatemala. So made quite a journey to swim up here, up to my collection, but really cool figure. And if you want to see more, I'm going to be putting a YouTube video up on the Collect Jurassic YouTube channel, so you can get sort of eyes on that figure.
Very cool. So let's hope that it makes its way to the U.S. Before too long.
So let's take a look around the Jurassic World. First up in this segment, I want to talk about Jurassic World Evolution. So for the uninitiated, this is the video game that came out last summer. It kind of coincided with the release of Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, but this video game is sort of a park builder, ultimate sim style game. It came out on Xbox, PlayStation, the computer, and it's a very, very well polished kind of I wouldn't call it a AAA game, but it's a very, very well produced Jurassic game. Again, about kind of building your own Jurassic World, tons of dinosaur species in there, and they've been doing a really good job of keeping it updated. They've done a lot of free updates. They've done some paid DLC. There's a Secrets of Dr. Wu, which was sort of a hybrid kind of themed expansion pack, and they've also released some paid carnivore expansion packs. I think the last one had a Herosaurus and I think Acrocanthosaur maybe, and another one. So they've done a good job kind of maintaining this game, which I think is good because it was definitely an excellent game as far as I'm concerned, but it definitely lost its luster after after a bit, which as a diehard Jurassic fan, you'd think you could never get sick of a game. Not to say that I was sick of it, but you kind of run out of things to do. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think what I'm really excited to talk about today is this summer update that Frontier Development, the creators of this game, have been hyping. So this summer update is coming hopefully right around the corner, and it's going to be a free update, and it has a lot of really cool tweaks to the main Jurassic World Evolution game. So I'm going to try to describe them and make them sound as exciting as possible as I can here for you guys. But they are actually really cool. So one of the things is they're adding a terrain brush, so you can actually color certain parts of the terrain in the game. So before, it's like you could build water and you could build grass, and that was it. But now they're going to be allowing you to paint rock formations, paint sand wherever you want. Maybe you can paint sand around a certain part of the lagoon, so there's a beach. Just a lot of cool little aesthetic details that they're adding to the game for free. They're also going to be adding, I think, pieces of scenery, so you can add logs and rocks and different kinds of large trees to your enclosures. Again, the base game allowed you to add just random tree groupings to your enclosure, but they're really giving you kind of this very exact control over customizing your dinosaur enclosures, which I think is so cool. That's the stuff that I really sink my teeth into. And I think a couple other things they're adding in the summer update are there's a new way that gyrospheres, you can actually build gyrosphere tracks in the game. You can now travel in between dinosaur enclosures on one gyrosphere ride. So you can be in the Brachiosaurus paddock and then transfer over to the Velociraptor paddock and then go into the T-Rex paddock, all in the same gyrosphere ride, which is cool. And the last thing I saw that they were adding in the summer update was some new kind of, I guess you'd call them needs for some of the Spinosaurid dinosaurs in the game. So think Baryonyx, Suchomimus, Spinosaurus. These dinosaurs right now, when you build an enclosure for them, you don't really need to give them water. They don't really care. Their artificial intelligence only cares about trees and grasslands, but they're adding this kind of need that you have to create more water for them so that they feel more comfortable in their enclosures and therefore ultimately don't try to escape. So it's just a cool little tweak they're doing to kind of make the game feel more real. And along with that, they're adding a feeder type, which is, in the game you have to feed your dinosaurs. They're adding like a fish feeder for, again, Baryonyx, Suchomimus, Spinosaurus, to kind of make them feel a little bit more specially tailored to those dinosaurs. So all these little updates they're bringing to the game for free that personally I'm real excited about. I'm more excited to kind of, have a little bit more realistic feel in my park, and again, customize these enclosures a little bit more to my liking.
Yeah, those sound like great updates, and you really can't argue with free. If they're going to enhance the game for free, then yeah, by all means.
Exactly. So have you ever had a chance to play the game?
Yeah, I got the game. I think it was the day it came out for PS4, and I've played it off and on. I've probably only played it maybe like 5 or 6 times. It's just, it's the kind of game that's very time consuming. You have to, slowly build out your park, which is fine. I was a huge fan of Jurassic Park Operation Genesis back in the day. Yeah. And, I could go like hours, nonstop with that. But I don't know, as I get older, I feel like I can't play video games quite as long anymore. It just, my eyes get tired and, I feel like, I'm wasting time ultimately.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
it's
time could be spent hunting for toys, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's a fun game. It's the graphics are really nice and I've enjoyed it. And I actually just played it last week for the first time in many months. It's nice to pick up when you have a little bit of spare time and play around with, but I'm not a huge video game person, but I can't really argue with them trying to enhance the game for free, and I'll definitely take advantage of that.
For sure. And I got the game when it came out too, and I played it quite a bit, and it kind of fell off for me once I sort of hit more or less the end of the game. But they've really done a good job of adding things like challenge modes and DLC, but those only ever kind of got me back into the game for a little while. But I think what I've really been missing is this enhanced customization that, you mentioned Operation Genesis. There's a lot of customization in that game. There's a lot of other kind of little systems in that game that kind of kept me coming back. And I think what they're doing with Evolution is they're building their way up to that, which I think is great that a company like Frontier continues to support a product that's, it's already out. We already bought it, but, they're adding things. I know they just added a capture mode, which you should definitely get in there and play with that. It's a free floating camera. You can freeze time in the game and get the perfect shot, or you can just let the time go or put it in slow motion and experience your park like every little detail of your park you can experience as close up as you want. So I would definitely recommend, if any of you out there have the game but haven't booted up in a while, that's a free update. Even before the summer update, that is really fun to play with, because you can really just kind of go into a paddock, turn the camera mode on, and just sit there and watch things happen. And I think that's where all of these Jurassic sim games throughout the ages have really captured me. It's just, watching my park unfold.
Very nice.
Yeah.
All right, so the next thing we want to address here is on Bryce Dallas Howard's Instagram page, she mentioned something regarding some photos she posted of some outfits, which they're very well put together outfits, I might say. But she said, in reference to one of the skirts that she's wearing in one of the photos, the skirt is from an upcoming secret Jurassic World project, and it just got left at that. So we got to speculate a little bit. Jurassic World project that's new. What's going on out there? So we know that they're currently working on Jurassic World the ride. That is something that's going to be opening up very soon at Universal Studios Hollywood, and I hope that I'm going to be able to check it out pretty close to its opening. And the other thing is Battle at Big Rock. We talked about this in depth in the previous episode of Collect Jurassic World, and we speculated that this is in fact, or possibly, the live action short that may or may not be debuting in front of Hobbs and Shaw. So it's most likely going to be one of those two, because we know that Jurassic World 3 hasn't began shooting. That's probably not going to happen until next year, next summer perhaps.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on this?
Oh, first off, I have to say, I just love that this news is coming out of an outfit breakdown. I think that's terrific. I mean, we get weird news from a lot of weird places, but this is probably one of my favorite yet. It's literally a comment about a skirt. So awesome origin point for this news. But yeah, like you said, could be the ride, could be Battle at Big Rock, but I did see on Jurassic Outpost, which is a huge Jurassic news site, they just ran an article the other day that there might have been some early filming for Jurassic World 3 in Ireland, of all places. I mean, it's a lot of I don't think anything's confirmed. It's just a lot of conjecture, but it was definitely something Jurassic related they were filming there. And maybe it was for one of these other projects like Battle at Big Rock or the ride. I will say, kind of connecting back to Jurassic World Evolution, I know there's a rumor about some DLC coming to that is kind of Claire Dearing based. And if you didn't know, in that game, Bryce Dallas Howard actually reprises her role, like it's her voice acting. So not that now that we're talking about it out loud, I don't know why a skirt would matter for that. So maybe we'll just go ahead and nix that one. So yeah, probably something where you actually see her outfit. So I think this kind of brings us into our next point a little bit too, about what this skirt, this mysterious skirt, what a secret project it could be for. It was announced today that Universal Studios Hollywood Jurassic World the ride that's opening this summer will actually have Chris Pratt, Bryce Dallas Howard, and why can't I think of Dr. B.D. Wong? Sorry, B.D. Wong. Dr. Wu. They were all reprising their roles that they played in the films, obviously, in the ride itself. They didn't say exactly, what they would be doing, whether it's, a pre-ride video, or maybe there's going to be a Chris Pratt animatronic. We can only hope. But they're going to be back in the ride. So, kind of swinging back to what this mysterious secret project is. She said that a week ago. Maybe it is the ride. Maybe she filmed something for the ride. We just don't know. But either way, exciting news about the ride. And I'm so jealous that you live relatively close to the ride, and you're probably going to be able to ride it way before me. So jealous of that.
Yeah, I've been seeing the commercials on TV advertising that it's going to be opening soon. And in fact, it played today during dinner. And I asked my husband, you give him a little nudge. Hey, so we're going to be checking this out when it opens, right? So, yeah, I'm stoked on it. And I totally got to agree with you. It's awesome that this little tidbit came out of a post about a skirt.
Yeah. So this press release that came out regarding, the ride and the actors kind of coming back for the ride had a really cool bit in here about the mosasaur that's going to be in the ride. It says chance to see this impressive creature become immersed with her massive aquarium observatory, appearing to span over 60 feet in length and tipping the scales at 30,000 pounds through state-of-the-art visual effects. It's a sight to behold. So they kind of say that they've mocked up in this ride a 3.5 million gallons of water enclosure. Now, obviously, they didn't really fill up an aquarium with 3.5 million gallons of water, but there's obviously some sort of effect in the ride where you're going to be seeing the mosasaur, and it's going to look like it's in its enclosure. But one of the things they noted about, which I thought was really cool, is they've like gone out of their way. So like when you're riding the ride at night, the aquarium looks like it's at night, and if you're riding it during the day, it looks like it's during the day. And they even said they factored in inclement weather. So I imagine if it's raining, it'll look like it's raining whenever you, I guess, take the boat by this aquarium. But anyway, it sounds like that part of the ride is going to be like probably the coolest thing ever. I can't imagine anything cooler than taking a boat next to the mosasaur tank. So looks like they've put a ton of work into that certain part. I know, I think you and me are both kind of ride aficionados, and it's always, we like the old school rides with the practical effects, and when they kind of use these screens for certain things, it's always a little bit of a bummer. But it sounds like for this ride, they need to use the screen. Like it's a perfect use for it if they're going to kind of fake in this mosasaur tank.
Yeah, and I do wonder if it's going to be anything like when you take the tram tour. One of the things that it does is it goes through Skull Island. It goes, there's a King Kong segment where
exactly.
It's all screens. You're surrounded by screens, but it's done very well. It's very effective. It's pretty realistic. It's been I think since 2010 since I've actually ridden on it, but it's a very convincing effect. So I assume it's going to be something along those lines. And of course, as summer draws near and we get more information, and hopefully I'm able to make my way up there, and we'll see what it's all about.
Yeah, and let's hope that there's some like cool new merchandise to get to. Let's keep things in the Collect Jurassic sphere. I definitely hope that when the ride opens, there'll be some fun new things to get from the gift shop. That's what I'm about.
Yeah, that'd be cool. And of course, we know they'll charge double for them.
Of course, yeah. I actually think the Indominus Rex that we've kind of talked about at length here in this episode, I think they're charging $80 for it at Universal Studios right now. Yeah, that's crazy. But hey, that's what we do.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. When I was there, last I was there was for the Jurassic Park 25th anniversary celebration, and the Super Colossal T-Rex was like $120.
Wow.
And I saw somebody walking around with one, so people were paying it. Gennaro was right.
Yeah. Well, hopefully they have some. Yeah, exactly. People will pay it. I just hope they have some maybe exclusive merchandise. I know way back in 1999, we visited Islands of Adventure when it was first opening, and the gift shop for Jurassic Park in Islands of Adventure was filled with stuff. It wasn't like repackaged Kenner stuff or Hasbro stuff. It was like merchandise they'd made just for the park, and there was some incredible stuff, rare stuff, like some of the things that I have from buying in that gift shop I've never even seen on eBay. I have like little raptor figures that are like little Lost World raptors that I've never seen anywhere. So I've always got after those kind of park exclusive gifts. Nice. So I hope that we see some of that stuff come out with the new Jurassic World ride.
Totally. All right, now, of course, as we get into our collector survival guide, we want to give you tips and tricks of the collecting trade. So in today's episode, we're going to be focusing on storage. One of those things that if you're a toy collector, you can run out of very quickly. So you always got to monitor your collecting. If you're a big time collector, of course, you need to have a backup plan. Where am I going to put this? Where am I going to put that? I think for myself, it's gotten to the point where I buy first and then I think about where I'm going to put it later. And I told my husband this the other day, and he thought it was pretty hilarious, but also very true. And yeah, I mean, if you're just picking and choosing, select pieces from toy lines, you probably just need a shelf or two. But if you're buying every single item in Mattel's Jurassic World toy line, and if you buy Star Wars, and if you buy Marvel Legends and Ninja Turtles, and I mean, who buys all kinds of things like that? Some people do. So you kind of got to think about, where am I going to put this, and how am I going to be able to place it in my collection. So, Tim, what do you think about the whole storage thing?
I think as adult toy collectors, your collection too kind of goes through phases as well, especially if you're moving or you're buying a house or you're getting an apartment or maybe you're getting a smaller apartment, moving in with somebody. Your collection it's bound to go through some changes, and part of those changes are going to be inevitably it being in storage for some part of the time. But I think this is definitely one of those things where to each their own, and like every collector kind of has a different way of doing things. I know my mantra personally is like, I try to keep as little as possible actually in a bin somewhere, not on display. I really try to get everything out on display. That hasn't always been the case. I've had points in my life due to where we were living or, what have you, where I had probably 80% of my collection in storage, whereas now, through having the room and also selling off a lot of things that I'm just never going to have room to display. As much as it pained me, I got rid of them. I try to own things and own them so that I can appreciate them and not just own them and immediately put them in a box, in a closet, which I collected like that for a long time. But again, to each their own. And I think, again, for me, I really try to focus on Jurassic. I do dabble here and there in Star Wars and maybe some other random things that I'll get into for a little bit that come out. But old Kenner, Alien Predator, I'm not going to get into all my other interests, but I dabble, but I think for me, it really helps to be focused. But I think everyone should just kind of be open to the fact that, you need to collect and for a way that makes you happy. And if it's stressing you out that you're having to, run out of room for things or get storage, then maybe it's time to kind of reevaluate your priorities as far as why am I collecting?
Yeah, wise words. And I would also add that if you ever get to the point where collecting isn't fun anymore, it's more of a hassle than it is than it's worth, and you're just not having fun anymore, then maybe that's the time that you kind of step back and evaluate, is this still making me happy, and do I want to keep doing this? But that's a topic of conversation for another episode if you want to go in depth a little bit more there. But
yeah,
for the focus of storage, like what I do, I have multiple shelves in my collection room, which also serves as my office and / music studio. It's kind of a mix of things that go on in here. I have multiple shelves, and as I noted, I collect all kinds of things. I focus primarily on Star Wars and Jurassic. Those are like the two mainstays of the collection, where, I dabble in things like Marvel Legends or Ghostbusters or Ninja Turtles, but just select special things here and there. I have, a good bit of, Batman, but again, not a ton of Batman, just a few Kenner pieces and some of the newer stuff by, companies like Mayfax, things like that. So what I find works for me is for the things that I have more of than anything else, which would be like Jurassic and Star Wars, is I kind of have to rotate things out. There's no way I can display everything. So I end up, let's say for Black Series, for example, Star Wars Black Series, I'll have maybe about 30 to 40 figures on display. But every few months, I'll be like, okay, these new figures have come out since then. Let's put those on display. Let's put the others in the closet. And I know that you noted that you don't like to have things in bins, and I don't think anybody does. If you're collecting stuff, you want to see it, you want to appreciate it. But for someone like me, the reality is that, I can't always display everything at once. So the next best thing I can do is just rotate things out. So
yeah,
I do store things in the closet, and I have bins and little shelves in the closet where I keep things, and I even have some things, like out in the garage, for example, things that, maybe aren't as important, but, you don't want to put your best toys in the garage because, things can heat and melt and all that. None of that's a good thing to think about. So,
yeah, I should clarify, just because I said I don't like to put things in bins, I have like 8 bins. So I should practice what I preach. I have a lot of like long-term storage stuff. But again, I want to pat myself on the back and say that I used to have a lot more in storage, and I've really thinned it out because I did feel guilty. Like I felt guilty about having all these toys just like, that I was never going to do anything with, but I had that kind of hoarder mentality where it's like, well, I need this, or I remember when I bought this and I don't want to get rid of it. But I'm telling you, Mattel really made me kind of get focused about everything, because it's like I knew there were so many toys coming out. I knew they were going to cost money. I knew they were going to take up space. I don't think I really predicted how much money and how much space looking at the collection all around me, but I think that really caused me to kind of, get serious about what do I really need to keep and what do I need to get rid of. And like you said, you have a few shelves. And for me, I have a collecting room too. It's kind of just a spare bedroom where I live, but it's totally become taken over this year. I had a few shelves that were ready for toys, and they worked just fine when Hasbro had their Jurassic World collection. I easily fit my toys on these shelves, and then Mattel quickly outgrew it, so I went ahead and bought some more shelves and put some more toys up, and I've already outgrew that, so I'm already thinking of new ways that I can somehow, some way fit more shelves into this room, because I do want to display it all. I think that's what's great about, Mattel Jurassic is seeing it all together and seeing all the different silhouettes and different colors and different species. They made a very, very nice looking shelf line. Like it all looks great together. You pick up 8 random figures and put them together, they're going to look great. So that's one thing I do try to stay ahead of, is having enough shelves, enough display space to show them all.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just the reality. If you're collecting long term, like I know we've been collecting for a really long time. I think I started the first line I actively collector mentality, I think, was the Kenner Jurassic Park line. I still have the boxes for those. I was 8 years old, but I had the foresight, I need to keep the boxes for these. So it does get to that point where you kind of have to step back and say, okay, I have all these figures on the shelf. Do I need to keep all the boxes for them? Probably not. Do I have room for this? No. And ultimately what some collectors do is they end up renting storage units, which, is a perfect thing to do if you have that much stuff, you don't want to sell, some of it, and you want to pay the fees for having a storage unit. So there are definitely options out there. If you can store at home, take advantage of that. But at the same time, most of us are just normal people. We live in normal houses, and we all dream about, one day, what if we have like this mansion with, this big, this floor, this third floor that's dedicated to toys. That might not happen for all of us. So, you kind of got to really think about how you're going to manage your collection.
Right. No, that's funny you should say that. No, I think, I think, like you said, we all dream about having this house, but you just kind of have to make do with what you have. I really like what you said about rotating. I used to have a roommate who collected comics and had them all on display on a wall, and he would rotate different comic series out. And I was like, man, that's a lot of work. Good for you. And I still like thinking about having to rotate things for me. Seems like a lot of work, but it is a great idea to kind of, if you have just way too much to put out and you have room to store a little bit of it, that's just a great way to keep things fresh and, keep you appreciating things. You're able to get a fresh look at them when you get them out and really appreciate them. So I do like that idea. I just think of myself and how much time I have alone to do those kinds of things, and it would I'd probably get around to rotating things like once every 2 years. So I don't know if it's realistic for me, but I too am dreaming of a giant mansion where I have a massive basement that I can fill with fake palm leaves and make the perfect Jurassic display room. But until then, I will be in this tiny, tiny bedroom surrounded by Walmart bookshelves filled with dinosaurs.
Well, hey, at least you're enjoying your stuff, and that's the most important thing.
Exactly. And I think that's what the takeaway is from this, is just, it's a balance of what you can reasonably have in your possession and, what kind of joy you're getting from it. So let's introduce this new segment for Collect Jurassic World. This one's called Your First Visit. So what I really want to do with this segment is kind of like, let's talk about some of our first Jurassic memories, whether that's, your first toy. I know for me personally, my first Jurassic Park toy was Dennis Nedry, and I'll always remember. But I think not just toys, but maybe the first time you saw Jurassic Park, or maybe you're a newer fan and it was the first time you saw Jurassic World, or maybe it was the first time you rode the ride or saw it on TV. I think there's just a lot of kind of fun nostalgia, fun trips down memory lanes we can all have. And what we'd really like to do here is reach out to you, the park goers, reach out to the community really, and hear these stories. And I think we're going to start off this segment with Stephen Ray Morris, who is a podcaster. You probably know him from See Jurassic Right. I know he is involved in a few other projects, but he's around this Jurassic community, definitely a name out there, and we'd like to kind of get his thoughts on his first Jurassic memory.
Hey Victoria, hey Tim, it's Stephen Ray Morris from See Jurassic Right, and I wanted to talk about one of my first Jurassic Park memories, and I wanted to talk about the toys because, but I'm specifically referring to, so I was 6 when Jurassic Park came out, and that first Christmas was Jurassic Park heaven. There's a photo of me shirtless as a little 6-year-old playing with a bunch of Jurassic Park toys and some Street Fighter toys. For some reason, I guess they were all in the same universe, maybe, potentially. But I'm surrounded by the Visitors Center, by the Junior T-Rex, the little mini one, the original Kenner one, 2 Nedrys for some reason, Muldoon, Grant, and Dr. Sattler. And that photo is, and it's almost my memory of, this photo has always stuck with me because it is definitely the earliest photo of me with Jurassic Park related, related to Jurassic Park related thing. But it just feels like it's like, if there's ever if you ever able to capture, if this was possible to capture somebody's happiest moment in their entire life, I sometimes think, I think it was that photo. In that moment, it just looked like I didn't have a care in the world, and I truly was transported and in my head living in Jurassic Park, because that was something I did all the time as a kid. As I would set up all the dinosaurs and make my little park, I would even bring in sticks and leaves from the backyard and sort of create my own Jurassic Park and have adventures and stuff like that. But that photo in particular, and I'll send it to you guys to look at, but that photo for me is just, as much as my memory of seeing the film in theaters was so monumental, I think that Christmas as well too, getting to really live and play and breathe those dinosaurs and those characters was super important to me and is still important to me to this day. So thank you again, Victoria. Thank you again, Tim. You can always check out See Jurassic Right, on all the things, See Jurassic Right podcast, where we talk about nostalgia and dinosaurs and feelings and all that good Jurassic Park stuff. And you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Stephen Ray Morris. Thank you both for including me.
All right, so it's that time of the episode where Tim selects a dinosaur and I select a dinosaur, and we pit them against one another and talk Jurassic Clash. So Tim, what are we working with this week?
So we'll be talking about Allosaurus, and we're definitely going to be picking one Allosaurus, each of us, but I kind of want to talk about the history real quick of just the Allosaurus and the Jurassic toy line, because Allosaurus is probably a pretty big, dinosaur species that all of us have known all of our lives. It's kind of like T-Rex. T-Rex's less popular cousin, but Jurassic has had its fair crack at Allosaurus. We have the Lost World Allosaurus that Kenner made, which I think is an excellent figure. And we have more recently, I think there was another Hasbro Allosaur that came out in, I think, 2013, and it was actually part of I think it was Dino Showdown. It was some kind of Toys R Us line, but that was a great Allosaurus. I mean, that was an awesome one.
It is.
We have Hasbro's Jurassic World Allosaurus, or as I call it, the Ronald McDonald Allosaurus. Very much yellow, orange, red, just very vibrant colors, but in my opinion, also not a bad Allosaurus. I liked it. But I think what we really want to talk about are the Mattel Allosauruses, right? we have the Roarivores that came out last year, and then just to get very topical, we have the new dual attack Allosaurus.
Exactly. And yeah, you mentioned these Allosaurs that have come before. I absolutely love that 2013 Dino Showdown Allosaurus. I just think it's spectacular in every way, shape, and form.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we want to talk about the Mattel Allosauruses. And we're both going to back one of these Allos and go at it and see who comes up on top, possibly. So,
Yeah.
Tim, which of the two Allos are you supporting?
So I'm definitely going to have to stand up for the original Mattel Roarivore Allosaurus that came out last year. That will be my pick.
Okay. All right. So then I'm going with the recently released Dual Attack Allosaurus.
Awesome. Yeah. So I think these figures look very much the same mold wise, but maybe you have a little bit of a size edge on me a little bit.
Yeah. I definitely think that my Allo is bigger than yours. The proportions are definitely a little bit bigger all the way around. This is a retooled Dual Attack Allosaurus, which, as you very aptly referred to as being T-Rex's less popular cousin, because I think that's a perfect analogy. In fact, one might say that Allosaurus is the Jan of Brady Bunch dinosaurs.
Yes.
And I like this. I mean, I know that they kind of cheaped out a little bit on it. They could have gone all the way and made it a mega dual attack, given it brand new legs, brand new tail. You know, it does have a new tail, but just really beefed it up and, you know, given us like a really awesome Allosaurus to possibly rival something like the Suchomimus. But
I think there's something like from the movie where Allosaurus in the movie was like a younger version of it, and we never really saw an adult. So maybe that's like the new dual attack is supposed to be like some sort of adult version. Maybe that's the reason for the disparity in sizes.
Yeah, that's certainly possible. From my understanding is that the Allos that we see in Fallen Kingdom are all juveniles, which is interesting because why are they all juveniles? My thinking is perhaps it's a newer species that was introduced into the park maybe like right before the Indominus, so they're just taking a while to mature. Then by the time we get to Battle at Big Rock, whatever that is, we have a bigger Allosaurus, a more mature adult Allosaurus, and that's possibly why it looks a bit different.
Yeah. I think that the Fallen Kingdom design, I love the color, and that's why I like this Roarivore figure. I just like the more muted shade throughout, and there's not this really kind of striking contrast that we have on the dual attack. It's a little bit more natural. I like kind of the little like brighter highlights around the face too, and I think that the Roarivore Allosaur really kind of captures the eye ridges of an actual Allosaur skull a little better than the dual attack does. They're very prominent and very pronounced on the Roarivore.
Right, and that's a really good point. The coloration of that original Roarivore's Allosaurus is really nice. I like that dark gray color a lot. It's actually the same exact color as my car, so I noticed that right away.
Oh.
And the yellow highlights, I don't think they applied them very well. I feel like, especially in the head area, it has a very cartoony look because of those yellow highlights. I think they could have blended it a little bit better, just applied it a little more naturally. So that's the only drawback I really have with that one. Also, the tail is a little bit small, which, you know, we talked about that earlier. That's kind of been an ongoing thing with a lot of these carnivorous dinosaurs. So looking at the dual attack version, I kind of think of this one as a birthday cake because you have this really bright blue frosting and then the cake, kind of being more of this ivory color. It's very interesting. You noted how the head just doesn't really look like an Allosaurus, and I would agree with that. It doesn't. I did talk about that earlier as well. Like, what do I look at when I'm trying to evaluate a toy? Like, first of all, how much does it look like what I saw in the film? Not really that much, honestly. But
we haven't seen what it's from too, so there's that part of it. Right.
I was going to mention that. But we still haven't seen Battle at Big Rock, so maybe it's going to look something like this. But I know that because they kind of took shortcuts here, it does suffer from really poor proportions. The head is large, the torso is large, and then they have the same legs from the original release, and the arms are they seem to be pretty much the same from the original release as well. Maybe just the mechanism has been changed a little bit to incorporate the action feature. The tail is also really small. So just proportionally, it doesn't look very good. The other thing I mentioned is that I have to evaluate how fun is it. And when I compare them one to the other, I feel like this Dual Attack Allosaurus to me is just a lot more fun than the Rorovor's release.
Yeah, I don't know what it is, but I kind of have to agree with you. I don't know if it's just something about the paint color makes it seem more fun. It's weird because on one hand, I want to be critical of it because it's just sort of strange and just a little cheap feeling, I guess, to be a little harsh, but something about it then makes me want to play with it more, I guess, and it makes it feel a little bit more, I don't know, just more approachable and less like something I need to carefully pose and leave alone. I think, you know, you got to factor that in too, that it feels like a more fun version of the Allosaur.
Yeah, totally. And it's clear that they took some inspiration. I'm not sure if this is Mattel or this is Universal who designed these new elements in the Allosaurus, but they certainly took some inspiration, it seems like, from Papo's Allosaurus. And
yes,
even the Jurassic Park 2013 Dino Showdown version we talked about, there are some similarities there as well. I don't know. I know it doesn't really look like an Allosaurus, but I gotta say, when I look at it from the front, it's just kind of cool to me that it kind of looks like a dragon.
Yeah, it kind of does. I didn't even think about that. The ridges on the head, something about the way that they're molded just feels sort of like dragon scale or something like that. Like kind of horns on top of horns almost. But yeah, there is sort of an element of that. But I mean, again, that's just making it look like a dragon. It's not really a true to form Allosaurus. But I know another thing that about the Rorofor that I think I really like too is the electronic element. The dual attacks for me, I could take it or leave it. If all of the dual attack figures suddenly became static figures that didn't have dual attack, I would be totally fine with that. Whereas I feel like roars, electronic roars, growls, screeches, whatever you want to call them, are kind of a cool thing to have in a toy, even if I'm not like, really playing with them. It's just a cool feature. I always appreciate, like the Indominus, for instance, all the movie accurate electronic sounds. So one thing I do think the Rorofor Allosaur has over the dual attack is those electronic roars where, the dual attack is just whipping his tail around and scratching the air.
Yeah, it actually doesn't have the tail action in this case. It is the arm slashing thing.
Oh, is it just one attack? I thought it wasn't it two though?
It does. It opens the mouth and then it has the arm slash up and down.
Sorry, yes. You can tell I haven't played with mine at length yet. Yeah, I just know that it slashes the air, which I think is kind of funny. But yeah, I would prefer the electronic roar to those kind of little gimmicky actions.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because for me it's actually the opposite. I prefer like action features over sounds. Like I don't mind sounds, but to me, I just have more fun, I guess, when I'm playing with a dinosaur and, I can make it, bite at another dinosaur or slash at, a human or whatever. But yeah. And then there's no batteries. I know that's always a concern with collectors, batteries leaking. So that's another thing I don't have to worry about.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. I think both of these figures have the same limited articulation. I don't think that one of them is getting ahead of the other as far as what you can pose with it, which is too bad. I feel like they could have had an extra neck articulation somewhere,
Yeah.
just to let them be a little more posable. But one thing I do have to kind of give the new dual attack Allosaurus, at least the figure I have, is that I can always, because of the plastic and the head being softer, I can almost always pull the lower jaw up into the upper jaw and like it'll stay there, so I can have a nice cool closed mouth pose, which I dig that. So it's not really an official feature, but it's something that I can get it to do because of that softer plastic.
The good kind of defect.
Yeah, exactly. That's something that I like that I just simply can't get my Rorofor to do.
Yeah, it's interesting too because I've seen this on some of these Allosaurs. I've been hunting and looking at them in stores and at Walmart anyways. And some of them do that. You press the button and the jaw just gets stuck. And I don't know what it is. I would say maybe about a quarter of them so far that I've seen seem to have this problem.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I haven't seen that myself, but that would probably kind of tip that into being a negative for me because we definitely don't want something that's broken. But I just appreciate that limited amount of articulation I can pull out of mine.
Yeah, and I know we talked about this previously, but I've noticed on a couple of these allosaurs that the top part of the head maybe isn't glued completely onto the neck, and it kind of wobbles a little bit. Have you seen that at all?
I don't think, I'll be honest with you, I've seen 2 of these in the wild, so
Okay.
I think you've seen a lot more than I have. But the ones I've seen were all basically, I didn't see any kind of common defect in them. They all looked, the 2 that I saw looked the same as the one I had at home. So
Okay.
I haven't seen that myself.
Right on.
Yeah, and I think that the Mattel Rebor, from what I can remember, didn't really have anything too weird outside the occasional, misprinted eye or something like that. So, as far as quality control goes, it was a pretty solid figure.
Yeah, I would say that. The only other thing I would mention about it, and this is a downer, of course, is that it does suffer from the issue that the original Allosaurus had, in that it has a hard time standing up straight. Like eventually, just the weight of the Allosaur at the front of the body weighs it down, so that kind of starts going down towards the ground, and
Yes.
that's a big problem for me.
Yeah, I have noticed just a little trick from the new Dual Attack is that if you squeeze the legs like as tight as they can be towards the body, because they're so articulated, you can kind of splay them out. But for mine, it tends to hold pose better when I kind of squeeze them closer towards the body. The second I kicked a leg out a little bit, it would really start to droop. So might be something worth it out there if any of you out there are having issues with your Allosaur standing, is just kind of keeping a tighter stance might just do the trick.
Yeah. Good advice. And I just kind of have mine balancing precariously on other dinosaurs that they're standing next to, so the tails are kind of balancing under the Spino or the Bite and Fight T-Rex. That way they stay propped up properly.
Oh yeah, tricks of the trade right there. I think a lot of my Mattel dinosaurs it's like an intricate puzzle. It's like a big game of Jenga. If you remove one Gallimimus, the whole thing comes undone. Everything's kind of leaning on each other.
Yep, same with action figures. If you have a bunch of them on a shelf, you knock one over, they're like dominoes. They're all going to go down.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I'd be really interested to know, what everyone else thinks about, which of these Allosaurs, if you've had a chance to own both of them, is the consensus that the new one is just a little too out there? Or, what do you guys think out there? Do you think that the Rebor is kind of the hailing king here, or there is something endearing about this newer version?
Absolutely. We want to hear from you guys. And also, if you have any suggestions or ideas for our next Jurassic Clash segment, be sure and send them in. We're really curious to see what you guys want to hear us duel about, whether it's something from Kenner, whether it's something that Hasbro did, or whether it's a newer dinosaur like what we discussed here with the Mattel Dual Attack and Mattel Roarvor's Allosaurus. So hit us up and let us know. I'm Victoria.
And I'm Tim, and we hope you'll check us out online. Obviously, you can find Collect Jurassic at collectjurassic.com. Also on social media, which is Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, all at /Collect Jurassic. You can also get in touch with us directly with our email at collectjurassic@gmail.com.
And you can find me online by visiting the Victoria's Cantina YouTube channel. I'm also on Facebook and Instagram at Victoria's Cantina and on Twitter at Vic's Cantina. If you're listening through Apple Podcasts, please be sure to leave us a review and give us a rating. You'll help other Jurassic fans and collectors be able to discover the show for themselves.
So thank you for visiting. We hope you've enjoyed your visit to the park.
Please make your way towards the main gate. We hope you'll book a return visit for another adventure into Collect Jurassic World.